It was amazing. Line up for your questions at the microphones. We have our first question here. We'll jump right to it. What's your question? Oh, yeah.
Hello?
There you go.
There we go. Alright, I'm a big fan of the original novel, or graphic novel, and I was just wondering how these two concepts went from being a priest fighting against fallen angels versus to a priest fighting against vampires, and if that was in any way influenced by current pop culture.
So this is something that Minwoo, I'll start and then hand it over to Minwoo. We, when I got involved in the project, there was a script written, and I read the script and it reflects the movie, and then I read the graphic novels. And what was interesting is what we had talked about was the idea that the graphic novel, which was 16 books that had a cliffhanger and no ending, and have no idea where Minwoo was going to take it. This was a way of Corey Goodman kind of imagining how the story would progress into the future of the world. And we brought Minwoo out to Los Angeles and we spent some time with him, and he had read the script and looked at all the artwork and the designs. And we talked a lot about how that sort of coincided with many of the ideas that he had about where he would take the story if he continued to take the story in the direction. Maybe Minwoo, you want to talk about that? This will be easy.
Sorry for my stupid English. So I speak Korean. Sorry. 그 오리지널 원작과 지금 영화화된 작품이 많이 다르기 때문에 저도 사실은 걱정을 많이 했습니다. 특히 타락한 천사와 신부가 이제 뱀파이어와 싸우는 그런 컨셉에 관해서는 저도 이제 처음에는 스커트와 여러 가지 의논을 하면서 걱정을 좀 했던 부분인데 다행히 좀 또 제가 원하는 새로운 작품을 원하기 때문에 제 만화를 갖다 너무 똑같이 만드는 것보다는 좀 더 새로운 작품을 만들어 주십사 해서 그런 과정을 또 새롭게 나왔기 때문에 저는 충분히 만족하고 있습니다.
That's it.
Christina,
I'm Christina. I'm the brand manager of Priest from Tokyo Pop. And so basically I'm here to translate for Minwoo and also kind of clarify some points. So basically what he said was that, he talked to Scott about it and they kind of worked this plan out. And the plan was not to stay exactly the same as what was going on in the manga. And their plan was to breathe new breath into the movie. And that is why it is based on the comics, but many years have passed by since then.
So this follows after Tomozilla has been defeated by Ivan Isaacs? Or?
Yeah, we talked about the idea that Ivan Isaacs was the first priest, and that the fallen angels had basically corrupted humanity, and they evolved into essentially blood-sucking characters, which is how they are described in the new priest graphic novel that Minwoo created, that takes the story from book 16 to where we begin our movie.
I have a question for Cam and Paul about the training, what you guys went through. I mean, Cam, you're good with a gun?
Thank you. I don't think I had quite the rigorous schedule as Paul. I think one of my hardest things was holding up that 70-pound gun. and so, my muscles right here are quite large. But aside from that, as you guys saw, I don't have the skill. So I get my ass kicked quite well in that scene. So yeah, Paul can probably answer that better. But he was born with that talent, so maybe not.
That was like my Sunday. I don't know what you lot do with your time on the weekend, but this is just what I do. No, I am British, and therefore I am starting from a butch deficit. So, you don't have to clap so loud. Come on, play nice. So I had 8 months of training to make me look like a normal human being. And then a bunch of combat training, and then a bunch of wire work, which I love doing. And then you've got a bunch of people whose job it is to make you look really, really cool. So you're getting a lot of help. And by the end of the movie, Cam does get the skills. Not quite as skillful as me. Maybe my priesthood. But I think I can speak for the whole cast and crew, so I will. Because I'm that confident. This was, I think everybody, if you found any of the cast on the streets and just were able to ask them, or the crew, and say, how was it? It was one of the greatest experiences of my professional career. Every day was a blast, even the days that I got injured.
Which
thanks to Vicodin, actually. So even those days were kind of great. But it was a fantastic shoot.
Let's do another question right here.
Yes, with the plot element of the missing girl and everything, it reminded me a little of The Searchers. And so what I was wondering is, what other diversion elements did you take influence from when you created the film? Because it doesn't look just like a straight-up horror film or any particular genre.
No, I mean it's kind of science fiction action, and it blends a lot of different elements. And a friend of mine described it to me after seeing the film. He said it felt like some familiar ingredients that made an entirely new recipe. So we looked at films like Bad Day at Black Rock with Spencer Tracy, which is a big landscape movie with a train. I tried to prevent myself from being overly influenced by things like Mad Max and The Road Warriors. Like, even though I love those movies, I kept those DVDs on the shelf because they are so influential. We obviously have this apocalyptic city, and those are kind of an elements, but that was fun. So you look at things like Blade Runner, and 1984 was a really big influence. George Orwell. There's a kind of technical, a religious theocracy, a technocracy that is ruling over the city. And just sort of those archetypal journeys. We talked a lot about John Wayne, we talked a lot about Steve McQueen, the movie Unforgiven is another one, Clint Eastwood, those kinds of men of action, that's an important part of it.
I have a question for Lily. You're a busy girl. Between this film, Snow White, and then this is actually news we can announce here. You've just been cast to be the lead in the Mortal Instruments adaptation from the novel series, and which, because of Snow White, they have to move the schedule around so you can do both films. How do you juggle such a busy life like this?
Well, it's all new to me, so I'll find out as I go along. But yeah, I literally was cast as Snow White yesterday, so this is all very new news to me. But Mortal Instruments is a huge deal for me. I am, like all the fans of Cassandra Clare's novels, I'm a fan myself. So I am so excited for the fourth book to come out. It's like 2 days now or something. I'm so excited. And to be able to portray a heroine that I have loved reading and imagining in my head, to be that girl, and to work with Scott again, who, when I saw the 3D footage last night, the world that Scott created is so fantastic, and Mortal has such an incredible world itself that there's no one better to create that world seriously than Scott. Like, it's going to be incredible, and at Screen Gems, you have the power behind the project and the belief in it. It's a dream come true, and schedule-wise, they were very willing to push for Snow White, so I'm very honored.
Excellent. More question? Another question here?
Hi, this is for Lily. First of all, congratulations on all the roles, especially Snow White.
Thank you.
question for you is, how does your role in Priest compare to your previous roles, like in The Blind Side, and your future roles, like in Snow White?
More vampires.
Yes, quite the departure from The Blind Side. It's quite the complete opposite, actually. Well, not only am I a redhead in this film, but in this film, I'm kidnapped, seduced, locked in a cage, starved, beaten, flying off trains, setting people on fire, and knife fights, and pretty much the exact opposite of what I did in the first film. But Lucy is, she starts out as that kind of damsel in distress who has priest blood in her family, and up to this date, she hasn't had to use those skills, and she becomes a fighter. So the character has an amazing arc in the film, and it was something that was amazing to play because I'd never done stunt work or action work before, and it's something that I want to continue doing. And this action role is something completely different for me, but Lucy was very fun to play, and the whole fantasy fairy tale world seems to be something that I am entering into, which means more WonderCons, more Comic-Cons, more fans, more fun.
I have a question for Min Woo.